Alrighty, wild people, it's time to do turn one. Let's have a look at our dough. Again, it's slumped back down a little bit, but the dough's a lot smoother than what we saw last time. So what we're doing here with turns 1, 2, 3, and 4, we say turn, some people say stretch and fold. The type of turns we're going to show you is more of a coil fold. So there's a lot of lingo going around, but essentially what we're trying to do is, now that we've mixed the dough, there's these two different proteins that when mixed together with water, that's what forms gluten. And so if you just mix the dough and left it, the gluten would form, but it'd be very irregular. There'd be no organization and no structure to the dough. And so by doing these turns, what we're doing is we're taking what would otherwise be a jumbled mesh and sort of stretching it and trying to get things organized in a way to where we can continue to build structure, meaning that we're kind of going to make these layers if you think about what's happening while we're doing these folds, which will make a little more sense in a moment. But and with the dough finished side up, working side down, like I was saying, we're always taking the edges of the dough and we're tucking them into the middle. So we're always working on this nice kind of smooth taut skin on the outside. And that's what we're going to do from beginning to end. So if you don't already have a little cup of water to wet your hands, get that now. But a little wet hands, a little water on the hands will prevent this dough from wanting to stick to you. So wet hands, and then first thing I like to do is work my hands down the side of the bowl and separate the dough from the bowl itself. Okay. So now that I've got that more or less free, I'm gonna go ahead and dip my hands again, spread it out. And I'm gonna do that coiling action like we saw in the last video. And so our goal is to stretch the dough, create tension in that coiling, which is also stretching the outer surface, organizing the gluten network, all while not tearing the dough. So if we pull the dough too far, eventually it's going to give us a little resistance, and if we go beyond that, the dough will tear. It's not the end of the world if it happens, but ideally we avoid that, and we don't need to really stretch it to its maximum capacity to have a great turn, which is building structure. So here we go. I'm going to grab about 3/4 of the way up my dough, so that when I lift, this far end of the flap will dangle down. So I want to make sure it's free from the dough, from the bowl. And now I've got that dangler. I'm going to tuck it under, and I'm going to do the same thing. And I'm just going to take this far in and continue to coil it under. So now I'm here and I have just this little tail at the end. So I wet my hands one more time because I was starting to feel the dough stick. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to lift, make sure I'm fully free from the bowl, and what helps with that is bracing the outer side of my wrists on the bowls, and I can literally pry the dough off. So now I'm free. I've got this hanging tail, and I want to swing that and tuck it underneath. Notice how I also turn the dough 90 degrees. So now that I'm ready to do my second coil fold, we've turned the dough 90 degrees, so we're going to do it. We did it in this direction, and now we're going to do it in this direction. So same thing, but now that we've already built a little bit of tension, the second set of coiling probably won't need to be as aggressive and won't need as many manipulations of the dough. So this time I might grab it a little bit more right in the middle so that that far end dangles down. I'm just going to continue to tuck it. I'm kind of using my wrists on the outside of the bowl here as well. And then I'm going to lift, pry the dough off, turn, and tuck that tail. So I had just a tiny bit of tearing there. Did you see my thumb stick? Not a big deal, but that's kind of what it'll look like. But otherwise, notice our surface of the dough is starting to get a bit smoother. It's not as sticky to the touch. It has a tackiness, but it doesn't want to come with us too much. And as we continue to do these turns, that's going to continue to develop, and it's not going to stick to the bowl as much. It's not going to stick to me as much, and all that is a great thing. So notice how much prouder it's standing in the bowl, and that just indicates that we did build some structure and some strength to the dough. When we check back in about half an hour, I will guess that this dough will have sunk down and molded to the bottom of the bowl a little bit more. And that's a great indicator that it's time to come and add more structure again. We need the dough to relax so that it has enough elasticity that we can do these manipulations of the dough to build structure and organize the gluten network. See you in 30 minutes.